Welcome, Gunslingers! We've got another Eternal deck tech for you this week. Big shout out, as always, to my wonderful sponsors over at inkgaming.com, where you can get custom mouse pads and playmats, all kinds of really cool custom gaming gear, and we have our own store. You can check for the promo code down below. It's Ilyon12 and get 12% off at checkout. And we have a bunch of custom gear ourselves from channel art. So you can go always check that out. And of course, all the subs and patrons that are doing things. Remember, it's the end of the month, so we're about to do another Eternal Tournament of Power. We're going to be running through all of the subdecks that have been submitted, and we're going to end up with the winner posted back here in a week or so for our next deck tech video. So really excited about which one's going to be crowned the next best deck in Eternal. But this week, I had a promo card that came up, right, which you might have noticed, called Severin. So we're running Severin's Killers. I wanted to make a deck around it. It looked like a lot of fun. It's a really hard card to break. They did pretty much all they can to try and make it a little bit tough to actually do anything with. So I think that they've kind of realized a while back they made a big mistake with Dawnwalker, because Dawnwalker had a lot of really big problems with just how broken it could be, and they tried to make Star Eater Severin pretty hard to break. But we're going to try. So Star Eater Severin is the 2/1, requires 5 Shadow. When you play a Relic, you get to pay it back from your Void with an extra attack, but also Exhausted. Exhausted is a big part of this. One of the things that I was looking at is like doing Haunting Scream decks and stuff to make him bigger and bigger, maybe give him Berserk. A bunch of like extra abilities like that so that he would become more powerful and deal a lot of damage out of nowhere, especially because he just keeps getting more attack. But you can't Haunted Scream him because he's exhausted. And even if you have something like Infinite Hourglass, which we do, it still comes into play exhausted, it just unexhausts on your opponent's turn. So, tough one to do. It also even requires 5 Shadow, which is actually more Shadow than Dawnwalker now requires in time to come back. Dawnwalker always only requires 4. Severin needs 5. So a tough one to break, but we've got a few ways to get around it. So obviously we're going to play in a lot of relics because it comes back whenever you play a relic. We're also going to be running Lethrai Courtier because Courtier gives us power cards so we can get more easily up to that 5 Shadow that we need. And then rather than do like an aggro build, because realistically it's going to be very tough for us to get to 5 Shadow. It comes into play exhausted, so there's no real way to give it charge and do anything like that. That doesn't work. So we're going to be doing a more grindy build that's based around kind of the old Xenan Killers archetype, but with a lot of a relic spin on it. So you've probably seen decks that are similar to this, which are Rat Cage Relic decks. In fact, it was the first deck that I made in set 5, and I had a lot of fun with it. But there's been a lot of new tech for it, and I like some ideas. A lot of them are running a little more primal than I am, but I tried to make sure that we're mostly time and shadow because of our hard requirements for Dawnwalker and Star Eater. There's one primal card, that I absolutely had to include, and I'll get to that in a minute. So Courtier obviously is just a necessity. Whenever you play a relic, you draw extra power cards. It makes it so that you get pretty much all gas, because you'll also notice it says you draw the top power card off of your deck. And so it means that it just constantly gives you more and more gas. You're pretty much not going to top power cards once you get a couple of Lethrai Courtiers going. Obviously works really well with our Star Eater Severin idea of having a bunch of relics. We have Aurelian Merchant because, hey, merchants are just kind of a necessity at this point. And a black market doesn't really make sense for us. We want to go for very specific extra relics of certain types. There's ones that we want to stack multiple relics of even if we can. And then Dawnwalker, because Dawnwalker works really well with Star Eater Severin once we actually get brought back a couple of times. It's also really good if we have other Dawnwalkers and a Xenan Obelisk. We have 4 Xenan Obelisks, so it makes it easier to do there. And it's like it works with Rat Cage when we have Xenan Obelisk. Xenan Obelisk and Dawnwalker is just really good in general. And of course, we've got a lot of fight cards because that's what we're going to be doing with the Star Eater Severin. If you've ever seen the killer decks, that's what they're meant to do, is just give Dawnwalker killer and then constantly recur it. We're going to do the same with both of these. So obviously Dawnwalker is a pretty decent inclusion here. It also works with another one that we'll get to in a minute, which is Shepherd's Horn. So We have a lot of one-of attachments, but I'm going to go into the 4-ofs first. So we have Rat Cage, because whenever we play a Relic, then we get a 1/1 Rat. Big downside that it can't block, but having a bunch of extra units is super useful for us in a variety of ways. I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit even just to go to the Shepherd's Horn, because whenever we have an Overwhelm card come into play, then we gain 3 life. And that goes with one of our one-ofs, which is Porcelain Mask. So all of our units have Overwhelm, and then they just gain us a ton of life. So if you have Rat Cage, or even 2 Rat Cages, or more, you can go, oh, look, Porcelain Mask, Shepherd's Horn, gain like 6 life. And then you just, every single relic is gaining you obscene amounts of life. So you're just constantly able to keep yourself above water. So even if these aren't blocking, your life total is so high that it doesn't really matter. And you can just keep using them to attack, throw away, devour, all that kind of stuff. So you can use them as a bunch of cheap fodder for different things. We have Marionette Cross, which gives us a 5/5. It's very cheap. And the 5/5 is important because it gets back Dawnwalker. So another little combo there. And obviously Relic working with Severin, just nice aggressive card. I really do like Marionette Cross quite a bit. And generally the big downside is the fact that it costs a lot of shadow. But hey, we're going to be trying to get a lot of shadow in this deck. We have Mask of Torment as some 2-ofs. We also have one in the market as well because it's really nice. But we don't need a lot of multiples of them. So I've cut down to just having the 3. It's a weird card because the first one's kind of amazing, but then like the second one is just generally overkill, so we generally don't want more than one of them. Xenan Obelisk is one of the best cards in the deck. If you have Rat Cage, Xenan Obelisk can win you the game, even if you don't have Severins or Dawnwalkers or basically anything else in the deck. Rat Cage and Xenan Obelisk alone can kind of get you through games. We have Xenan Temple, as well as just the 3-of. It's another one of those cards that kind of like Mask of Torment. You want 1, but having a hand with like 2 or even worse, 3 of these is awful, because it just takes way too long to get all of the value out of them. So I didn't want too many sites. I could even see going down to 2 of them here. But they are useful because they give Killer. And so another way to get Xenan Initiation on both Dawnwalker or Star Eater Severin. And then, of course, Xenan Augury combos with Mask of Torment by gaining his life and just being able to look through more cards. Scare isn't super useful as the spell that gets played off of it, but World Joiner is an incredible bomb at the end. And when we have a whole lot of rats and stuff, it's just nice to have one big threat that can kind of stomp through and they have to block that. You can get all your little rats through instead. So, like Xenan Temple a fair bit, but you don't need too many of them. We also have Devour, the Xenan Initiations, like we talked about, because we just want to be able to give Killer to Star Eater, Severin, and Dawnwalker as often as possible. And then we have the one card that is primal in this deck, which is Display of Knowledge. And it's just a little bit too important for us to cut. I really would like to have no primal in the deck at all, just because we want to make as many time and as many shadow influences as we can. But being able to have a Display of Knowledge is way too strong. It allows us to run so many of our one-ofs. Like, if you're wondering why, like, there's one Infinite Hourglass and none in the market. Like, why is that? You know, it's not super useful in a lot of games, but there are times when you desperately need something like that. And so, if you're, like, in a bad spot and you need to have your Dawnwalkers and Star Eater Severins blocking immediately, you can get an Infinite Hourglass. And you can get it by using Display of Knowledge, almost like an in-deck merchant, because you just pull it up, right? So it's just, if people have any played Magic the Gathering, it's a tutor, right? It just looks directly through your deck. You can pull out a bunch of one-ofs, and you can have some silver bullet moments. So, like, if you need to kill your opponent that turn, boom, Display of Knowledge, Secret Passage. Porcelain Mask, this is the card that I could maybe shift more in. There's a problem with it where it's another one of those cards where I definitely don't want 2 of. It's much, much worse even than Mask of Torment or Xenan Temple. Having 2 Porcelain Masks is awful. But the first one is way more important even than Mask of Torment or Xenan Temple. Like, it's super powerful because it allows us to the whole Shepherd's Horn plan, and that's what lets us stay alive. So we're only running 1, but then we can run the Display of Knowledges, so we're actually kind of running 5. We have a way to search it up. And we have the Aurelian Merchant, and it is one of the ones that we have in the market. So we run extra options there as well. So it looks like we have one, but realistically we have 9 different ways to get Porcelain Mask. So it's really not as bad as it seems, and it makes it so that we don't have to run 4 of them in the main deck and have hands where we've got like 2 or 3 of them and they're just mostly useless. So it's nicer to have them kind of secreted away in different areas that we can just search up instead. Display of Knowledge is not only useful for getting relics, by the way, but also the fact that like every game mode of it is relevant. Putting an attacking enemy unit on the bottom of the enemy deck is insane. It's as good or even better than Silence most of the time, and just removes the creature. And then of course you've got the +2 and Quick Draw, and that's a permanent buff. And that can be really good if you're trying to attack through with like a Dawnwalker, or lots of the time, I mean, you put Xenan Initiation on it and you just need to pump it up a little bit more to kill something, and you want to keep your Dawnwalker around for the next turn, and there you go. Easy peasy. You can do that very quickly with a Display of Knowledge. So it's got a lot of flexibility. Its main role is to pull up relics, but it can definitely do a lot of different things. If you've already got your mask, you've already got your horn, and you're just kind of going through the motions, you're looking for some way to kill them, then you can use it to protect yourself, or you can use it to, you know, push through some extra damage and make a really big threat that they can't deal with. So lots of different ways that you can do that. We have a couple of crests that are just in here to help us make sure that we're playing our primal off of the Display of Knowledge, and then we've just got like 2 each of the off-color ones. We have 4 of Crest of Mystery and 4 of Xenan Banner, and then 2 of the others, and then just a lot of regular sigils. You might wonder why we don't have like more banners or maybe some seats or something, but we're not running enough basic sigils to run seats, because if we start cutting these down, they're always going to be depleted. And if we run banners, I'm worried about them being depleted as well. This is kind of the limit. The reason being that like you just don't want to have too many depleted power in your deck, or you're going to be too slow and die to everybody by basically being a turn behind. Our market, we have all of our key cards, right? We've got a Xenan Initiation as a removal and a way to like set up the combos for Dawnwalker stuff. We've got Porcelain Mask and Shepherd's Horn, so we have both pieces of the combo where we can start just gaining a ton of life. We have Mask of Torment to cash in on all that life. And then we have Passage of Eons, kind of for mirror matches. There's some decks that are like this that are similar going around, so it's not a bad idea to have it. It is absolutely the like switch off memes kind of card. It's the off button for memes decks, so I kind of feel bad running it because, whoo boy, it sure wrecks us. It's a card, but it's so powerful that you can't really justify not running it. So that's the deck. I'm pretty excited about it, and I'm gonna run it through a gauntlet here for you, and we'll be back in just a moment with all the games. Stick around.